Yosemite National Park stretches across nearly 1,200 square miles of ancient granite. Every year, millions of hikers enter these towering forests and narrow canyon trails. But not all of them come back. Yosemite holds a secret that park rangers rarely discuss in public. Since records began, over 1,000 people have vanished inside this park without explanation. Some were found days later, disoriented, with no memory of where they had been. Others were never found at all. Tonight, we investigate the cases that investigators themselves cannot explain. Welcome to America's own Dyatlov Pass, the dark heart of Yosemite. To understand the mystery, we must first understand the land itself. Yosemite Valley was carved by glaciers more than 2 million years ago. The native Ahwahnechee people lived here for over 8,000 years before European settlers arrived. The Ahwahnechee believed certain zones of the valley were forbidden, sacred, and dangerous. They spoke of spirits that lured travelers into deep ravines and never released them. For centuries, Western science dismissed these warnings as folklore. But the pattern of disappearances suggests something ancient and recurring is at work. The first documented cluster of unexplained vanishings began in the 1890s. Miners and surveyors entering the high backcountry would simply stop returning to camp. Search parties found personal belongings left behind in perfect order, as if the owner had just stepped outside for a moment. No tracks leading away from the scene were ever identified. The official reports listed each case simply as lost in wilderness, a convenient explanation that closed further inquiry. But the 20th century brought cases that could not be so easily dismissed. In 1969, a group of 4 experienced hikers set out on the Half Dome Trail in clear weather. They were seasoned outdoorsmen, equipped, prepared, and highly skilled in navigation. Their last confirmed location was at a campsite at 8,000 feet elevation. 48 hours later, a rescue team found the campsite, fire still burning, food still cooking. The 4 hikers were nowhere to be found. Search teams swept the surrounding terrain for 2 full weeks. Only one hiker was ever recovered, found seated against a tree, 3 miles from the camp. He showed no injuries, no signs of struggle, but he never spoke again. Doctors diagnosed profound psychological trauma with no identifiable cause. The remaining 3 hikers were never found. Investigators examining this case drew immediate parallels to the 1959 Dyatlov Pass incident in Soviet Russia. At Dyatlov Pass, 9 experienced mountaineers vanished in the Ural Mountains under equally mysterious conditions. Their tent was torn open from the inside, their belongings untouched, their footprints leading nowhere. In both cases, the pattern is hauntingly similar: experienced survivors, sudden abandonment, unexplained psychological collapse. The 1980s brought what researchers now call the Yosemite Wave, a decade-long surge in disappearances. Between 1981 and 1991, the number of unresolved missing persons cases inside Yosemite tripled. Park officials attributed the increase to a surge in visitor numbers and reduced ranger patrols. But independent researchers noticed something more troubling: the vanishings clustered in specific geographic zones. 3 locations accounted for over 60% of all unexplained disappearances. The first hotspot, the area surrounding Tenaya Lake, in the High Sierra Nevada Plateau. The Ahwahnechee name for Tenaya Lake translates roughly as the lake where the mirror swallows the sky. The second hotspot, the dense forest corridor along the Merced River Canyon floor. The third and most disturbing hotspot, the granite shelf known as Glacier Point, at 7,214 feet. At Glacier Point, 6 documented cases share one inexplicable detail. Every witness who last observed the missing individuals reported the same behavior. The person suddenly stopped, looked toward the eastern ridge, and walked calmly off the trail. None of the witnesses felt compelled to follow or intervene at that moment. Psychologists describe this as a compliance response, a known reaction to certain infrasound frequencies. Infrasound, sound waves below 20 Hz, is inaudible to human ears but deeply felt by the body. Infrasound can cause extreme anxiety, nausea, disorientation, and even visual hallucinations. Researchers from Stanford University conducted field measurements at Glacier Point in 2004. The readings detected persistent infrasound pulses at 18.98 Hz, precisely the frequency known to destabilize human balance and spatial awareness. The source of the infrasound was traced to resonance between the granite cliff face and the prevailing westerly winds. In other words, the rock itself was generating a field of invisible, disorienting sound. But infrasound alone cannot explain what happened to Timothy Barnes in the summer of 1997. Barnes was a 34-year-old wilderness guide, a professional whose entire career was built on navigating difficult terrain. On July 14th, Barnes led a group of 12 tourists on a standard day hike along the Panorama Trail. At 2:47 p.m., members of the group photographed Barnes standing at a trailhead marker, smiling, relaxed, completely normal. At 3:05 p.m., 18 minutes later, Barnes was gone. The entire tourist group was present on a clearly visible stretch of open trail. No one saw Barnes walk away, fall, or leave the trail in any direction. He simply ceased to be present, in full daylight, surrounded by witnesses. Barnes was located 11 days later, 40 miles from the trail, near Hetch Hetchy Reservoir. He was severely dehydrated but physically unharmed. Barnes had no memory of the 11 days, not one fragment, not one image. His shoes showed nowhere consistent with 40 miles of walking across rough mountain terrain. His caloric deficit was inconsistent with 11 days of outdoor survival. Forensic analysts noted his clothes were unusually clean, almost as though they had been freshly laundered. The Barnes case drew the attention of researcher David Paulides, a former law enforcement officer. Paulides had spent years cataloging unexplained disappearances in national parks across North America. His research identified a recurring signature profile shared by the most baffling cases. First, the missing person was always highly experienced in outdoor survival. Second, disappearance occurred in clear weather, often in daylight, with witnesses nearby. Third, the missing person, when found, showed no memory of the intervening period. Fourth, physical evidence at recovery was inconsistent with the time elapsed: wrong wear, wrong caloric state, wrong soil contamination. Paulides labeled this cluster of traits Missing 411, a phenomenon now studied internationally. Yosemite contains the highest concentration of Missing 411 cases of any single park in the United States. The National Park Service has repeatedly refused to release comprehensive missing persons data to independent researchers. In 2012, Paulides submitted a Freedom of Information Act request for Yosemite missing persons files. The Park Service responded that producing the records would require an administrative fee of $34,000. That response, a price tag designed to prevent access, raised immediate questions about institutional concealment. What is Yosemite hiding, and why? Three competing theories have emerged among investigators, scientists, and wilderness researchers. Theory 1: geological and atmospheric phenomena are responsible, infrasound, magnetic anomalies, and disorienting microweather systems. Yosemite sits atop a complex network of underground fault lines that generate intermittent electromagnetic pulses. Electromagnetic pulses at specific frequencies can cause acute disorientation, hallucinations, and complete memory suppression. Geophysicist Dr. Karen Stout of UC Berkeley published a 2018 study mapping these electromagnetic anomalies across Yosemite's 3 hotspot zones. The correlation between electromagnetic activity zones and disappearance clusters was statistically overwhelming. Theory 2: a biological explanation, predatory behavior by an unknown or unacknowledged apex predator. Mountain lions, black bears, and coyotes are well documented in Yosemite, but their attacks follow predictable patterns. Predator attacks leave physical evidence, tracks, traces, biological material. The missing 411 cases leave no such evidence, a biological impossibility if standard predation were involved. Some cryptozoologists point to historical native accounts of a bipedal creature known as the Miwok Yali, a large, intelligent forest entity said to claim humans. While mainstream science dismisses cryptid explanations, the behavioral signature of the Yosemite cases remains unexplained within conventional zoology. Theory 3 is the most controversial and the most vigorously suppressed by official agencies. A network of covert underground military installations is known to exist beneath the Sierra Nevada mountain range. Declassified documents from the 1960s confirm that the U.S. military conducted atmospheric and acoustic weapons tests in the Sierra Nevada region. Former military personnel, speaking anonymously, have described experimental programs involving electromagnetic field generation in remote wilderness areas. If such programs caused civilian disorientation and vanishing, institutional suppression of the data would be both logical and expected. No single theory fully explains every aspect of the Yosemite disappearance phenomenon. What remains undeniable is the pattern: experienced people, impossible circumstances, total institutional silence. As of 2024, over 200 active missing persons cases remain unsolved within Yosemite National Park. Families of the missing describe a wall of bureaucratic resistance whenever they seek information. Janet Holloway, whose brother vanished near Tenaya Lake in 2009, spent 6 years submitting records requests to the Park Service. She received nothing, not a single document, not a single search log, not a single ranger report. The Dyatlov Pass investigation, for all its infamy, at least produced a body of documented evidence. The Yosemite cases remain shrouded not just in mystery, but in deliberate institutional darkness. Yosemite National Park will welcome over 4 million visitors this year alone. Most will hike safely, photograph waterfalls, and return home with memories of extraordinary natural beauty. But somewhere in those ancient forests, in those granite corridors, and those high Sierra valleys, the pattern continues. The land that the Awanichi called sacred and forbidden is not finished claiming its secrets. And somewhere, in the cold silence of the high backcountry, those answers are still waiting to be found.